Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Thursday, February 25th, 2021. Let's talk some college basketball. The Fresno State versus Nevada Las Vegas UNLV game is ending right now, and it looks like Fresno State is upsetting this game. They're up 67-64 with 4 seconds left. So, a really interesting day. Interesting is the word. So, it's 19 and 15 the way I sent this out with no home bump. Now, do you know how many underdogs won today? Like overall, like a lot of big favorites lost. I counted at least I think 16 underdogs is what I counted. That's crazy. So we did I think a little better than Vegas because I think Vegas lost 16 and we only lost 15. Pretty insane day. Also, some of these spread cover margins that were negative mean that we covered a little bit more of the spread this way than it looks. Actually, not that bad. So let's go through really quickly the games I talked about and was anything helpful. I did mention Clemson; they won easily. I mentioned them in my Ken's round robin video if you saw that one. So that was good. Then there, guys, like crazy games. North Carolina lost to Marquette. Virginia got pounded by NC State. Like this was an insane day here. A lot of weird stuff. Mason doesn't cover the spread, although I wasn't able to bet on it because I think I'm in Virginia, and so I don't think you can bet on Virginia games. I think that's what's going on there. Um, what else? Nevada, Las Vegas loses minus 300. St. Bonaventure wins as an underdog. I mentioned that one, and they won outright. Good for them. It wasn't even close, I don't think. And what was the final score? Final score was all right, 56-53. I guess it got close at the end, but they did pull it off as an underdog. Interesting that our underdogs had really good day. Alabama lost, but St. Bonaventure and McNeese State down there at plus 150 wins on the road. So the only thing that's of interest, I had somebody ask me about the home bump and changing the home bump. And it turns out if you go to our 9%, nothing really good happens, and it's still 19 and 15. But if you go all the way up to 20% home bump for some reason, it does make this 21 and 13 and have a string down here. So really bumping up means that only a few away teams remain and survive this 20% home bump because you're adding 20% to the home team. So it really has to be a lopsided game for it to still favor the away team here, these teams. And Dayton was the only one that lost out of these, and they had a health issue, right? They had injured or whatever. So pretty interesting if you bumped it 20. I think I've seen that happen sometimes with massive home bumps, that it does result in better outcomes, but I don't know. That's why you can subscribe, get the file, and mess around with it yourself so that you can see what to do. So let's talk about today, the 25th is Thursday. What do we have of interest today? Of course, this will be updated and change, and I'm sure there'll be games added and stuff tomorrow. So subscribe and get the email list with everything because I'll send the email out tomorrow as it's more updated. So, all right, well, do we have any underdogs? First of all, the answer is we have a bunch at a 0% bump. Of course, 3 away dogs. That kind of makes sense. Oh, and these are not even underdogs because there's no line. I hate that. I haven't fixed that. The way to remove that is to just not make them minus signs. That'll help. I think that'll get rid of them. And there they go away. So there are 3 dogs, and SEMO against Eastern Illinois is plus 180 down here. But these are not high power percentage teams. So anyway, now what else can we look for? As I said, okay, being really picky is a good idea when you're doing sports betting. Being extremely selective. You want to only date the bell of the ball. If we are, I saw a really cool thing, actually a video by Mr. Excel recently about adding people, cutout people, which is pretty funny. And I was thinking about doing this. You want to pick only the best. Only the best. Who's the best here? Elena, are you the best? Sure. Only the best is what you want. So it's important to be really selective. You can actually change these people and they can have like thumbs up, thumbs down. I was thinking about putting them next to the picks to be like, this is an Elena pick. Anyway, we may work with that in the future. Point is what's the most selective picks that we can use and we can find, right? And how do we dig through this to answer those questions? So, well, I'm learning with you, but let's go and take a look because we've got 35 games in here so far. And all right, so what are we looking for? We're looking for teams, the opponent's health is hopefully weak, and it's a home team for us, and they're stronger, and yada, 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 at no home bump. So games like this are great. The problem is they're at minus 900, which is not a good line. Minus 435, it's not a good line. Here's UCLA away at Utah. All right, keep going down. Away. Man, tough schedule. USC is away at Colorado. Colorado's good. I've been there. I didn't get into the stadium though. they have actual rules at their arena. I think that's Colorado Boulder. Boy, it's a really tough schedule. Doesn't it look really, really tough? And why is Minnesota at 47%? This is what I hate about analyzing this. This makes me want to go with Northwestern because I know Minnesota got blown out too. I think they're short players. Something's going on. We could look through the injury report with them and answer this question. You should subscribe if you care enough to really, really dig deep and answer questions about what's going on with teams. I would highly recommend subscribing to this because I obviously don't do this every day, and I should. I actually feel like I'm gypping you guys by not doing a better job organizing this. For example, these players, Gabe, Jarvis, Liam, Marcus, especially Marcus Carr, what's going on there? Like, what is going on there? Well, we have to dig in here. Like, are they going to be gone for a while? Like, are they out for the season? Like, what is going on? The answer is game time decision, and it's foot and ankle. These two are out now for the season, and we need to start getting some dates on when these things happen to see when teams adjust and when they lose a big player and then just replace them with other people. This thing is going to get really complex, and I actually think I'm going to, I might have to reset the injury report before the tournament to see if everybody gets healthy and who's back, and I want to get people at a starting point because I've seen interesting things like Duke lost a big player and then started playing better because apparently that player was not actually helping them even though they were getting the ball a lot. So there's some complexity going on with health, and it's, I mean, we can go down the rabbit hole forever with this stuff. I try to do the best I can, but there's always more questions. I know. What do we do? What do we do, Elena? All right. There's another thing I want to talk about, which is I have a power strength grid also. I brought this thing in to say, like, if you want to focus on teams that the algorithm considers to be above a certain strength, the teams that are above 25% are the only teams I care about. Or maybe even the premium teams above 50%. Well, then you get these select group of games that pop out here as teams that you know are strong teams to begin with. Because if you've ever heard me say, as I'm trying to handicap the games, and Ken's like, oh, he says this and this and this, and I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Well, if I say this and I go, but the team's a weak team. Oh, the teams have got a weak power percentage, right? That's not a favorite team, but I'll point and be like, this. I'll be like, Florida A&M is a weak team. Well, in order for us to not even have to consider that game to begin with, we can say, oh, man, I don't want premium teams today. All right, now let's see which premium teams does this thing tell us to pick. Let's just do that as an exercise right now, because I bet you it's going to help. I mean, how did this work? You can go back in time and look for wins and losses in previous days to see how that works. Like, all right, well, yesterday was a bad day, but let's go over like the last 5 days, 4 or 5 days, right? 5 days. And we grab just those teams that are over. Look at how big you can make this power grid. Totally mess around with this thing. We can change the heights and weights. The columns and rows. Heights and weights. Let's call this heights and weights. The rows and columns. All right, so I get this huge grid, right? And I was like, all right, well, let's just pick the teams above 50%. We could start rounding this too, not have a problem. So it's just these teams. How did we do with those teams? The answer is we went 34-19 and 25-29 on the spread. Well, maybe that's because a lot of them have big spread numbers, right? Because they're always huge favorites. That's very big possibility. So there's a whole lot of analysis that I could just go down like forever. I could just go forever doing this stuff, right? It's not necessarily productive, but it is fun to dig in if you're that type of person that likes to dig into this. So let's get back to the 25th today and see if we can see anything of interest. No, just a lot of away teams. We were looking through Minnesota's where I left off here, and a couple of those game time decision guys might play. So this is actually not a good bet on Northwestern because you don't know what's going to happen. So is there anything reasonable anywhere? I don't know. Bad team, right? I definitely do. I definitely want to go above 30% to find a pick of the day. I'm going to leave you with a pick of the day just because this should provide at least a pick of the day because it's smart enough to do that. I mean, we're looking at every game, so we can be super selective. I just selected teams that are only above 30%. It's got to be at least a decent team. Now we have to look for a decent line, but I'm going to start looking for the money line last. And let me explain why that is. Because I know this is a fault in how I'm handicapping. I scroll down this money line and I look for green stuff because I'm like, oh, that pays good. So is that something that I can work into being a pick? Can I justify something as being good because I get a good line? That is a bad way of thinking. It's a bad way of trying to assess what you're doing here. This thing is supposed to say, I mean, even in its rawest form, it is telling you this is the strongest team versus the comparatively weakest team when you compare the two together on the left. Whenever we're descending by margin, which is the way I send out the file and usually display this information. So really what you're supposed to do is take Gonzaga to win, and you're going to win every day. But you can't, as you can see, you can't even get a money line on Gonzaga because everybody knows they're going to beat Santa Clara, right? So you have to start dealing with 31 points, and then we start looking at money lines and realizing that you can't pick them even though you would like to. So the money line, though, is going to be the last thing that we are going to look at. So I almost want to hide it to see. You know what? Actually, let's do that. Let's leave the spread because that's I know, but let's open it up. I was thinking about hiding it just because we could display what the final pick is going to be, but we're going to get to a final pick, and we're going to get to a final pick by pruning out things that we don't want to see. So, and finding things we do want to see. Okay. So by looking at the money line last, then that means that what else can we look at to prune teams out first, right? Because normally I'd be looking at money line to find things to bet. However, here we want to get rid of things that might potentially not win. Well, we know that anywhere between a 0% bump and a 20% bump, which is also shown things, we want our team to be on both of these lists, both 0 and 20 in my opinion. And the only away team that survives that is actually Ohio State. This is intriguing. So Ohio State survives a 20% home bump, is only at 84%, is playing Michigan State. But it's still tough. Good team, but man, Michigan State's good. However, that is a good thing to note because that's kind of saying that of all the away teams, there's only one away team that would survive a massive home bump. So keep that in mind. Ohio State in some fashion is sort of a pick there. Now, but I didn't like the line very much because they're away, right? They're away. I'm not going to talk about the line though. Okay, but that's a vote for Ohio State when it comes to picks being really, really good on this list, right? I'm going to remove Gonzaga because you can't even get a money line on them. I'm going to remove anything. Okay, here's the other thing I want to do. I want to create a slicer for spread. And the reason why I want to have a slicer for spread is because there are certain spreads that we just cannot bet, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody talk to me if you think that I am wrong and I should be changing my thought process on this. But my thought process on spreads is if it is such a huge number more than 10, in my opinion, I can't deal with it. I can't deal with this. You never know if a team's going to win. I don't even want to include 10. I wouldn't even do 10. Anything more than, 10 or more. So I want to get rid of all those as they're just not possibilities. So we just removed them off the list. All right. Now, look at Ohio State on the top of the list. This is really funny. I almost want to check their injury report real fast just to see what's going on with them. Just make sure that. So they got some people out, concussion, personal shoulder. I don't know how long these people have been out. Looks like that happened. This person's supposed to be back next week, but not for this game. These people are game time decisions. So looks like there's a lot of injuries. That's kind of a vote against them. It does mean that those things are actually happening. So it's a vote against Ohio State, essentially. Belmont away at Eastern Kentucky. -7.5. We have them winning this game by 10. Both these teams have played a lot, but they're away. So the away is rooting against them, and the line here, which is the last thing I'm looking at after everything, is not good. So I'm going to move on. Arizona State is at home against Washington, but they're at 60% health. Here's another thing. Let's create a slicer for health. If we're really doing this to remove everything. Operating strength is the slicer category. Oh God, we gotta look at percentages. Anybody who is below a certain percentage, we wouldn't consider. Let's say if they're below 80%, we don't want to consider them. Boom, we just removed a bunch of other teams. All right, now we're left with this. And Arizona at Washington State is at 87, -8.5. They're a 48% team. Washington State is supposed to lose this game only by, doesn't have the spread cover as positive, so no. Okay, here's another thing. So another thing I'm going to do is create another slicer for spread cover. Okay. Because spread cover plus is where is it? There's spread and there's spread cover plus. I can't read sometimes. Maybe it is a calculated field and I can't do it. I can't find it. Well, all right. What I was going to say is when there's a negative number here with the spread cover, so I'm going to resort this for a second and sort it descending by spread cover plus. This is a negative number, means we would not take these teams with the points as provided. We'd actually take the other team. So I don't want to mess around with these games on the spread, and all the money lines are pretty bad, except for Pepperdine against Loyola Marymount. Wait a minute. And Loyola Marymount is at 83%, but the margin is super, super close. That's still not a great line. I haven't found the pick yet, but there's some interesting stuff up here. USC away at Colorado. This is funny because my personal bias wants to go with Colorado because I respect them and I remember that they're a pretty solid team, but they're at 90% here. USC is 2.5 points you can get with USC. They lose out at a 5% home bump. So if you think the home bump is 5% or more, then they're supposed to lose this game if we were to redo it. But this says that they win by 3. They're not at home, though. They're not at home. St. Mary's is at home against Pacific, but it's -300. Michigan is at home against Iowa, is -186 and -4. 6% home bump, and he's a very good team. Here has a lot of consistent things. And I just want to look at every other game on here, but there's something I want to go back to this Michigan game in a second. San Diego State is -270. against Boise State and is at home and has a 9% margin. So let's look at descending by margin. I know this video is insanely long, but who cares? I'm just going to do this and be done with it for the day, guys. I want to just explain the in-depth amount of really what you should be doing to make the correct pick. Because if you keep going through this, you're going to not make as many mistakes. You're going to eliminate things you should have avoided to begin with. So just resorted by margin for a second because St. Mary's against Pacific is kind of interesting. Michigan is very interesting. San Diego State at home against Boise State is kind of interesting. Why? It says they're going to win by 5. The spread is 6. It's minus 270. Is it all that interesting? Not really. This one's interesting because it's only minus 186. And there's a lot of reasons Michigan probably wins that game. And here's the other thing. Well, who's the strongest team on here? It's Michigan. That's the other thing about this. So remember how I said the team's got to be on the list whether there's a 0% bump or a 20% bump? Well, there's a 20% bump. Michigan's all the way up here. And look at how decent that line looks, right? So when I'm going to be talking about making a round robin bet tomorrow, and I need to have high quality picks that are most likely not going to lose, well, the spread cover number is 0, so I'm not going to take Michigan minus 4, but I am going to put Michigan minus 186 on my parlay and on my round robin because they're the most powerful team on the list. They're at home already, and their margin is positive even without a home bump. And their health is essentially almost 100%, and they're probably going to want to win. So that is what I'm going to do. Pepperdine against Loyola is not a bad option, but you can see their power is lower, and the margin is a lot lower. So you're counting on the home bump helping more, and the opponent's health being weaker also. That is a plus for Pepperdine. So another pick on my round robin tomorrow is probably going to be Pepperdine minus 189 also. But the Michigan pick is better. And when we talk about being selective, it's better because the margin is 6% more already. That's why. And so you want to go with things that are better because if you just hang around the best, then you become the best. All right, so Michigan minus 186 is the pick of the day as of tonight. Of course, there'll be an update if you want to get on a list and subscribe to this. You can play around with all these fun toys and all these little filters and things so that you can get down to really make educated picks. Right, Elena? Yes. That's right. Okay. Good luck, everybody. May all your picks be winning.